Hello, amigos. Host Eric here. Host talking to people. That was not an indication, Kimberly, that you need to remove your hand from my head.
I was just gonna.
You're like, oh no, we're on. You mean we're live?
Head to you lovingly.
Well, God forbid this make the blooper reel. The blooper reel. The frugal bugle.
I was gonna say that too. I had to think about it. I can't even say.
So, I had an idea, and I can't really. I think it's agreement. This is a surefire win. We want to open a restaurant called the Frugal Bugle with a false business history that explains the Frugal Bugle is uh, a family split, where one of the brothers uh, took his equity from the business, the Regal Beagle, which was featured, Steve, yeah, which was featured in Three's Company, of course, and the other brother, Eric, went off to say, no, I disagree with the direction you're taking the Regal Beagle. I want a business that's more in my own vision. That's why I'm opening the Frugal Bugle. And I think people would go to that restaurant. I do. For that reason. They'd want to see what the brother of the owner of the Regal Beagle did with the concept.
And in my opinion, you should Google the Frugal Bugle.
I should Google, right. I said, Kimberly, can you think of any words that rhyme with frugal? I'd only been able to think of bugle.
2 minutes later.
She didn't come up with bugle, but she's like, well, what is it? Can you think of any? I was like, well, there's one. I've got bugle. And then later, 2 minutes later, she's like, Google. And I thought she meant Google it. Like, oh yeah, I should Google. Hey Google, what rooms rhyme with bugle? But of course, Google does rhyme with bugle. That's not the topic of this video. What are we doing here? All right. So all that notwithstanding, I made a little paper to read out loud to you. I had an idea of a video I wanted to make about cognitive functions that was based originally on an experience of my own where I made a snake cage. I made a cage for my snake back when I lived in Eagle Rock, way back before my first marriage, and that's what gave me the idea to do this. But I realized that if I want this video to get a lot of views, I need to make it more spicy than that. So you'll see I've altered it slightly for clickbaiting purposes. But I'm not baiting you because it really is about that. But you can see why I did that. It's a lot more, probably get a lot more views than a snake cage. The situation. This is your first day on the job as a new hire. Follow me, greets Mr. Perdone, your new boss. He leads you down a back staircase to a wooden door. Tired sunshine from 2 flights above provides enough light for you to notice nothing unordinary. Your boss detaches a key from a loop on his belt, unlocks the door, swings it open, and strides unhesitantly into the pitch black on the other side. Staying put for want of light, your ears attend to the hollow report of reverberant footfalls, and then to a set of fumbling noises. Finally, a zipping sound brings with it the light, and you adjust to sudden brightness. The room is bare, you see. The floor and walls are of concrete. Mr. Perdone stands in the middle of the space beneath the hanging light bulb that comprises the room's only source of light. You now note a faint odor. Sniff, sniff. Odd but familiar too somehow. Ah, yes, the meaty stench of all-purpose squalor. And those curious notes of musk? Sniff, sniff. A gamey, thick smell. An opossum family, swaddled in your sleeping bag. Presently, Perdone lights a cigarette. He draws deeply from it into his lungs and shakes his head, exhaling the smoke through his nose. Next, he squints your direction and purses his lips in a most practical manner. A cluck and a nod announce his final taking of your measure, which he then delivers by looking you up and down very slowly. You are confused. He points to the wall with the lit end of his smoke. It used to sit there, he says quietly. You sigh. Our old BDSM cage, that is, continues Perdone sadly. We sold it and shipped it away. We got a good price, but now we are short one BDSM cage. Which reminds me, change of plans. Your job is now to build me a BDSM cage, finish it by 6 p.m. You raise a finger in objection, but Mr. Perdone presses forward. Supplies are upstairs in the shed, and a few of your coworkers are around here somewhere, but try not to bother them. We do critically important work here, you know. Our nanobiotic herbological attack mechs would already have solved hunger, except most people simply refuse to eat after birth, even if it is Roundup resistant. You venture. Did you say your yet unverbalized concern elicits a no head shake from your new boss, which accompanies an impressively decisive hand gesture? Who can remember what I said, he demands angrily, or what anyone says for that matter? Remember? You hesitantly offered. Wah-ha-ha-ha-hoo-yah, chortles the man dramatically. You are one funny, funny, funny little bunny, bunny, bunny. Am I right? Wah-ha-ha-ha-hoo. Abruptly, the laughter ends, and the hands go to the hips. He leans toward you with a stage whisper. Do a good job and get an unrealistically large instant cash bonus, but do a poor job and you are fired. Do you understand? This time you wait a moment to make sure he's done so you won't be interrupted. Verdone waits right back at you, arms crossed and toe tapping in impatience. When you do open your mouth to answer, however, Verdone whips one long finger to its position against his lips and hisses an exaggerated librarian shh. At this, your open mouth befuddlement snaps closed, then open again. You move your lips, but aren't sure what you're trying to say. Oh, look, shouts your new boss. A phone message from my wife. Her water just broke. I didn't even know she was pregnant, so it's a super big deal. I have to leave right this second before you can even say one thing. Goodbye. And then he runs off. Now, this question is going to pivot on two different things. How will your type respond to the overall situation? And point two, how will your type try to complete the task? So let's do part two, we kind of got to do them together. And we're going to go like this. NETI, TINE, like that, the first two. So NETI, ideation. They're going to say, what are all the different possible ways that I can come up with that one might make a BDSM cage? That's not likely to get it done by 6 o'clock. They're very unlikely to succeed, right? INTP, also ideation, but they're not thinking about all the different possible ways they could do. They're saying, they're starting with TI, which is a fairly useless function for things like this. It's going to say, why are these things the way they are? What does that reveal about the design realities of this thing? They're going to be much more curious about that. They're going to be ideating in order to generate enough possibilities to try to identify the best possibility. And then they'll think about it for a long time before starting to do anything. So they're very unlikely to get it done by 6 p.m. as well. Let's look at FESI. Since we're going in the alpha quadrant here, FESI. What is FESI likely to do? First of all, FESI, that's ESFJ, finds themselves now isolated in this room with nobody to talk to or nothing to do socially. They go to their SI, they're going to say, well, what do I know about BDMS cages from personal experience? Let's say they saw a movie one time which showed one. And then they will go upstairs and not go straight to the supplies, but try to enlist the assistance of other people because, of course, they're FE. ISFJ, which is SIFE, would not like this at all. Neither would necessarily ESFJ. I'm sure nobody would like this, but they're not inclined towards improvisation at all with 4th slot NE. So what she would do is she would rely heavily on SI to determine what such a thing, what has she encountered or heard about somebody else telling about that's of equivalent task, and how did she deal with it at that time, and what worked and what didn't, will be her most important thing. The FE quality, of course, she does use FE, so she too might seek the assistance of others to help with this thing. In fact, she's likely to do so. But unlike the FE Dom, she's going to be a little less entirely thrown by being isolated initially to work on something alone. Now let's go to the other side of TI, TISE and SETI. So TISE is ISTP. ISTP is going to deal with this by knowing having some perception of what the essence of a cage is, and it'll be like the most straightforward, stereotypical version of that thing, and then they will proceed to try to understand how to do it by understanding what certain steps are designed or intended to do, and whether or not they will. TI is, again, not very useful, but the SE means that ISP is likely to get this cage done by 6 p.m. because they're going to follow through, and they're not going to spend all their time ideating a bunch of other possibilities. They're going to think about their one possibility they can think of, which is the most obvious possibility, probably, or just the simplest, straightforwardest one. And they're going to try to get every last understanding they can out of that. That's how they use their TI. and then they take action and follow through and don't bother thinking about it anymore because it's already been decided and the action is taken. There's no point in musing it. ESTP, less likely to get done because they're less likely to understand what to do. So ESTP has 6-slot TE like me, and not that strong. But ENTPs have a little bit of an advantage in the TE area because NE and TI allow us to ideate other approaches to TE. ESTP doesn't really have good TE. They use an NI epistemology is in the 4th slot, so they have a weak sense of how the world actually works, but that's the only understanding of things that they really work off of. And so, with the TI constrained temporally to things not yet decided. In other words, with the SE decision, following through on decisions already made, always preferred, there's very little room for conceptualization within a creative framework. So the only way ESTP gets it done, is if they already have in place a plan for how to do these things, or are able to approach things as simple enough, like I'm just going to make a cage. I don't know. Like if I were to ask this, I wouldn't be able to say, well, how does a BDSM cage differ from a regular cage? When I made a snake cage, it had very distinct qualities to it. The reason that the story can start with a snake cage is because my plans for it, when I was starting to make it, it was too big. I was no way able to actually fit it into the house. I wouldn't be able to get through the doorway. And my friend Alvin pointed this out before I proceeded too far along the path. He realized, wait a second, are you even going to be able to fit that through the doorway? A question I never would have thought until I got to the door. That's indicative of how different minds think differently about things and how countervalue TE can get you into big trouble sometimes if you just let your any urges run wild with you. Okay, so in this instance, I think the ESP would probably be best likely to attain it by 6 p.m. if they were to keep that cage symbol. What about INFJ and ENFJ? All right, so INFJ, another TE polar person, is going to have a shit ton of trouble with this. Unlike ISFJ, though, their 5th slot NE is considerably stronger in practice, though not in its own awareness, for the INFJ, because ignoring is stronger than 4th slot, for sure. Like, I have strong NI. I just don't quite get, I don't always recognize when I'm using it. I don't always remember to use it. It's hard for me to actively be in that kind of mental space, but there's no doubt that it's strong, and also that it's hit and miss. But 4th slot NE is consistently weak except for bouts of playful realization. So Kimberly and I were just riffing about a funny joke a little while ago about the Native Americans, and she killed it. She killed it with the riffing and the voices and stuff, just like as well as I would, as well as I do when I kill it. The difference between an any dom and any 4th slot is that happens. She attempts it very rarely, and when she does attempt it, it has probably about the same hit and miss as mine. It's just the total number of shit that she attempts is very small compared to mine, and so obviously she has a lot fewer hits. But she has a lot fewer misses too, probably. Anyway, the point is, 5th slot NE gives INFJ a little bit more room to work with possibilities, but TE means they're never going to get this done by the TE, SE in the 4th and TE in the 7th. They're never going to get it done by 6 o'clock, and they don't want to have to focus on how to do it effectively because that's getting in the way of people enjoying the process. Of course, INFJ would be bothered by the fact that they're isolated here, but not nearly as bothered by that fact. They'll probably will seek. INFJs notoriously seek to solve problems by accessing and referencing, moving aspects of their circle of people. ENFJ is gonna not like this at all. ENFJ is gonna FE first and then NI, and they're gonna say, okay, this is really, really bad FE on your part, new boss, and I don't know how to do this, and I don't get it. Like, what does your ideal cage look like? I mean, what's the perfect cage? I can't figure. My NI is not working fast enough here at all, I'll tell you. So ENFJ also has 7 slot SI, which means they don't understand subjective knowledge. So they're not going to reference their own personal experience, particularly as a means of knowing how shit's done. And they're not going to care much about their own comfort or anything. They're not going to be aware of it, but as a consequence, they may collapse when it reaches a certain critical mass for lack of attention. They'll certainly include the coworkers. Now, let's go on to the ENTJs. These people have a good chance of killing this. ENTJ is going to go, all right, well, I got till 6 o'clock. That's this many hours. How am I going to get this done? These are the necessary elements that I must include for it to be successfully considered a completed cage that will be of at least adequate quality that he won't say this is just garbage. So I need these elements. Now I got to be able to attach them quickly. I got to figure out a quick way to do this because I got a limited time frame. These are the tools I have. He gave me no specs on how big it should be, but BDSM sounds like I'm going to have to be a human-sized cage probably. So I don't know how tall it's got to be, you know. And probably almost for sure get it done by 6 o'clock. He'll probably end up getting the coworkers to do the actual labor as he stands there and directs them. INTJ. Stereotypically, that's what would happen. INTJ is also likely to get done by 6 p.m., but INTJ is the one type who's probably likely to determine some trick to bypass having to actually do it. Like, oh, well, I found this crate, this plastic crate outside that I realized if I put them all together like this, they have holes that fit perfectly these poles right here, and it'll stand up without me even having to attach anything, provided I zip tie the crates together. So some little shit like that, you know? And then it'll be done, and it'll look awful, and it'll meet all the criteria, and the boss will come back and be like, that's so ugly and like thrown together. And INTJ will be like, I followed all the instructions and I complete according to the stipulations you made, and so I don't understand what you're talking about. Because of course they have polar FE. Now in that same group of folks down there is ISFP and ESFP. That's SEFI and FISE. Of all the people, it'll least likely probably to be freaked out by the situation. Although I think anybody would be freaked out by the situation. But I think ISFP would have a pretty decent shot of finishing this thing. The good SE will help. And it's not a complicated thing. Like a 4-slot TE, at least they're actively, constantly able to think of those modalities, although it's a struggle for them. It takes a lot of effort because it's 4-slot. And the thing they're being asked to make doesn't require a lot of ideation or anything new about it. They can just make it same cage like it's seen in cartoons or whatever. I'd say much more likely to finish by 6 o'clock than a lot of other times. ESFP, a little more of an iffy one. Again, SE first means action first means impulse first. ESFP like ESTP like ENTP. But ESFP, ESTP, very much likely to get partway through the process and realize they need to go back and start over because they fucked up an early step that requires them to start all over. ENTP is likely to do that too if he gets off his ass and starts doing anything at all. If he starts acting out as NE instead of just ideating in his head, then he's for sure in the same boat as ESTP and ESFP. If he just ideates in his head indefinitely, he's still more likely to be in that boat with the STPs than most types because the counter value TE. At least with their polar TE, ISFJ or an INFJ is hesitant to commit to a given course of action because they know that there's only so many actions that one can commit to, and they understand sort of intuitively, though not consciously, that they don't do well with being efficient in how to finish things. The last ones we have are ENTJ, INTJ, ISFP, ESFP, INFJ, ENFJ, ESTP, ISTP, ENTP, INTP, ESFJ, ISFJ, ESTP. Did I do them all? It seems like I'm forgetting some of them. I did FENI, I did FESI, I did SI, ISTJ, that group. ISTJ, ESTJ, INFP, INFP, ENFP, right, okay. So ISTJ is going to finish thing by 6, no problem. ISTJ is the most well equipped to complete the job. They've got TE, they've got SI, they've learned all the sub-processes of making shit. So they may never made a BDSM cage before, but they know how to use a cordless drill. They know how to make sure you've chosen the right size screws before start screwing them in. They know how to not make all the fucking stupid TE mistakes I will make or Kimberly will make or somebody who doesn't value make. They'll get it done for sure. ESTJ, same thing. They are TE first, then they're SI versus SITE. Doesn't matter. They're going to both basically approach it the same way. They're both going to knock it out of the park. And neither of their cages is going to be especially innovative or anything. But probably ESTJ will put a little personal touch on there to represent his third slot hidden agenda of extroverted intuition. INFP, zero chance of ever getting anything done. Zero chance they're going to get this done. No. If you give them until 6 p.m. 3 years from now, they won't get it done. Why? Because, first of all, they might not like the feeling of a BDSM case. They don't like the feeling of that word, maybe. But they're not really sure if they like the feeling of that word or not. They need to think of lots of different possible ways they could feel about that word, and lots of different possible ways they could feel if that word were a little bit different, and how other people might feel about it too. And then when they're done with all that, then maybe they can decide whether they actually want to attempt to make the cage after they get taken out. ENFP, of all the extroverted intuitors, INTP, ENTP, INFP, and ENFP, those are in the 1 or 2 slots, they're the ones who are most likely to get it done. ENFP at least has got 3rd slot TAE, which makes it their hidden agenda, which means they get a juicy satisfaction when they succeed on a TE level. So they're going to at least like this kind of puzzle and have a decent shot of pulling it off. They don't have the SE nature. That's their 8th slot function. That's their insecurity function, just like it's mine. But that TE helps them be a little bit more effectively dewy for certain kinds of tasks, this one perhaps being one of them. Like ENFP, though, would also, like ENTP, have to watch out for having their eyes are too big for their stomach, or Being too ambitious, trying to include too many clever little things or whatever, and so still very unlikely to get done by 6, but more likely than the other 3 NE users. And that concludes all of the 16 types for this. I just want to say for a moment, who would react? Who would roll with this best, and who would freak out most if this situation happened? First of all, I'm not sure anyone's gonna roll with this well because it's a ridiculous situation. I got caught up in it. I started like playing doing this bad thing that I do when I write sometimes, which is instead of keeping moving forward, I get stuck in nodes trying to make them funny or something, and then they don't necessarily fit together. And I gotta get. That's why writing's a certain amount of. There's a lot of massaging in writing. You gotta work through it. Cut. You try to make everything as few words as possible. So get the heart of the whatever idea or joke and try to cut out all as many words as possible. Okay, so but that's not what I'm saying. Who would freak out most? I think probably ENFJ would freak out most. I mean, they wouldn't display much freak out, but they'd feel least equipped to do it, to get the job done. ENFP would assume they are going to get the job done and then be lying to them. Not lying to them, just be, typically self-oblivious. Most likely to freak out, I guess, would probably be ISFJ or ESFJ because they're a little bit more traditional, not necessarily in actual practice, but in their sensitivity towards what gets said aloud kind of shit. And they don't like improvisation, and they're being asked to improvise in an area where they're weakest, namely TE shit. So probably ISFJ would freak out the most. ENTP would be the most overconfident. ESTP would probably just walk off the job site. ISTP would probably be like, I can do this job. I know what a case looks like. ISFP would be wondering about their feelings, whether or not they should leave or not, probably. INFP, depending on what kind of INFP it is, either bails immediately or sticks around for sure. And ENFP, probably not scared away, but probably wants to understand what this person's feelings are, why he's acting so weird, what feelings that represents. ENTP would be like, it wouldn't go like that with ENTP. Well, it might. This is the first day of the job. Did you say eat after birth? ENTP wouldn't fly away unless they're ever being scammed or something. They just think, okay, this guy's fucking crazy, but if I can get a big old cash thing, if I can finish this. See, the cash might motivate me. I could probably get that done now. At 46, I could make something like a case. I had the materials like bars and frames and stuff, and all I did was attach them to things. If I had to make a cage out of random shit, that'd be a little harder, but certainly I could do it with boards or something, in theory. And if there was sufficient motivation with a large cash, an unrealistically large cash award, well, obviously, everyone likes cash. So, okay, the video was a little rambly, but I'm putting it up anyway. Fuck it. Not fuck it. I'm putting it up anyway because it's good enough. I hope it was entertaining. I know it could have been better, but I'm not going to remake it, and I'm not going to rewrite this thing. That already got away with me. It already got away from me and took up like 2 hours of me picking, editing, rewriting, and rearranging shit. It's silly. It's just silly nothing. I didn't even start. Eric, god damn it. You see what I'm saying? But TE, that's kind of like poor TE in the sense that I'm not necessarily using my time efficiently. Anyway, thanks for watching Talking with Spanish people. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. And if you do, it's probably because you misplaced it in the BDSM cage.